marks the death of the lives of 6 journalists who have been reporting on the U.S.-backed Israeli genocide for over a year. Their names are, and repeat them after me, their names are Anas al-Sharif,
Anas al-Sharif,
Allah Salam, Hassam Shabbat,
Hassam Shabbat,
Ashraf Sahaj, Ismail Abu Omar, Talal Akri. Journalism is not a crime.
Journalism is not a crime.
But because they dared show the world the truth
Because they dare show the world the truth
of the Zionist entity's violence,
of the Zionist entity's violence.
Israel is now making false claims
Israel is now making false claims
in order to justify the assassination of Palestinian journalists.
the assassination of Palestinian journalists.
Currently, we are standing in front of the New York Times, where inside there is an all-staff meeting happening. Yesterday, Writers Against the War on Gaza made an urgent appeal to all networks and to all media workers to leverage their platforms to ensure the protection of these 6 journalists facing death. We stand outside here today demanding that the New York Times, that Joe Kahn, the executive editor, publish a statement condemning the iOS targeted assassination. The time to act for our peers in Gaza is now. American newsrooms and several media workers in the West have spent the last year refusing to speak out in defense of their colleagues because of a so-called ethical concern. What ethical concern is there to deliberate when our colleagues are being murdered? It is also important to remember that not only are these our colleagues, these are people with at least 45,000 people dead and 168 journalists. Enough with the silence. It is this very silence that has become directly responsible for the largest assassination campaign against journalists in history. Israel's clear aim is to kill every last journalist in Gaza in order to impose a media blackout. Last November, the Palestinian poet Moshe Abutoa was released from Zionist detention after his American editor called the iOS. That is the power of a phone call. Failure to say anything is cowardice. an interview
We published an interview
with the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate,
with the Palestinian Journalist Syndicate,
and they told us, believe that the journalists of Gaza have taught a lot.
believe that the journalists of Gaza have fought a lot.
We learned from them how to really be dedicated
We learned from them how to really be dedicated
to what we do,
to what we do.
how to work in the midst of a crisis.
To work in the midst of a crisis.
Imagine without these local journalists,
Imagine without these local journalists,
we would have never known what was happening in Gaza.
we would have never known what was happening in Gaza.
Their patience is unbelievable.
Their patience is unbelievable.
Each one of them is a story.
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 In our thousands, in our millions,
In our thousands, in our millions,
we are all Palestinians.
we are all Palestinians. We are here today to honor among the martyrs the 165 Palestinian journalists targeted and killed by the Zionists. We are ashamed. We are also here to shame every single person that lives and works in this building who refuse to shame. People who are pushing past us as if we don't exist. People who pretend to not know the truth, but we know the truth. We have seen the truth. We are here to condemn the entity's shameless collaborators in the Western press who have spent these last 10.5 months regurgitating Hasbro, spreading lies about the resistance and explaining away the colonizers' crimes. Shame on every person who pretends we're not standing here. May their lives haunt you. On July 31st, the Al Jazeera journalist Ismail Al-Ghul and his cameraman Rami Al-Rifi were assassinated by an Israeli drone while reporting on the ground, as they did tirelessly, ceaselessly, steadfastly for 10 months in Northern Gaza. They were killed because the truth is the ultimate threat to Zionism, and because they were resisting repression, resisting fear, resisting fatigue, and resisting cowards. And they were killed. And they were killed by the same occupation forces with whom mainstream American journalists embedded on a daily basis in order to quote unquote report on this so-called conflict. Here in the imperial core, the American government has repeatedly and publicly denounced dogmatic crackdowns against the press in an attempt to uphold the veneer of progress and democracy that the United States peddles like snake oil around the world. All the while, America assists in press censorship while sending billions of dollars to the Zionist government in aid of their genocidal campaign against Palestinians, which has become the deadliest conflict for journalists in recorded history. Their press vests have become targets on their back, while these press roam free, unwilling to tell the truth. With each martyrdom, shame on you! With each martyrdom, imprisonment, and each disappearance, we lose fragments of the truth that cannot be recovered. Every journalist killed moves the world further and further away from understanding the existence of the Palestinian resistance and the tenacity of its people. Shame! Every journalist murdered is an attempt to erase the experience of any oppressed people.
Shame!
When presented with these first-hand accounts, it's often feels like we've seen both too much and not enough. But it's our responsibility to keep listening. It is our responsibility to bear witness. It is our responsibility. It is our responsibility to see the truth in the stories of real journalists eye of the storm and push a fabricated narrative. Shame! We must know their opponents. Western government censoring media coverage, The New Yorker, CNN, BBC, The Atlantic, and The New York Times. We recognize that these imperial stenographers are among our greatest adversary in the cultural arena. They have lost their humanity. They have lost their morals, but we have not. This is in large part because of what we have been shown by Palestinian journalists, by Palestinian media workers, and by individuals, human beings, risking their life every single day to show us the truth. These are people who are under the constant barrage of missiles and bullets who still seek to preserve the truth, so that even when they are gone, we will not have the option to forget them and their people. Shame on the New York Times, shame on Joe Kahn, and free Palestine! Free